WHS, the World Handicap System, it's here. We're all now going to be playing by the same set of handicap regulations wherever we play golf in the world. In the UK and Ireland, for example, we've been used to terms like competition scratch score, standard scratch score, buffer zones, 0.1 increases for a long time. Those have all gone. There's a whole new set of terms to get your head around to understand how this slope-based system is going to work. In this video, we're going to pick out 8 of what we think are the key terms to get your head around so you get a better understanding of how the new system works. Well, the most important term, I think, is handicap index, because this is what we all have now rather than a handicap as such. And there is a key difference here, because the index is then used to determine how many shots you get on a given course off a given set of tees. And you'll get more shots on harder courses and fewer shots on easier courses based on the slope rating, which is another term we'll come on to in a minute. In the transition from the old system to the new system, it will work out your best 8 scores from 20 over a 2-year period. Going forward, best 8 out of a rolling 20, and it will average those out. And for those who didn't have 20 scores in the system when the changeover came, it will pro-rata it on the number of scores available and work out a suitable number of those to use to create your average. So handicap index is what you're going to have going forward rather than a handicap. So from handicap index we then come on to course handicap, which is what you'll actually get when you play a given course, and it's a factor of your handicap index, the tees you choose to play from, and the slope rating from those tees. You will actually from that then get a playing handicap depending on the format being played. For example, single stroke play events are going to be 95% of your course handicap. To calculate your course handicap, and you don't have to do this because this will all be done for you, you take the slope rating of the course, divide it by the 113 average, and then multiply it by your handicap index. And that will give you your course handicap for the set of tees you're choosing to play from. Essentially what you really need to know is that if slope rating is above 113, you're likely to get more shots, depending how much above it is, and if it's below 113, you're likely to get fewer shots than your handicap index. But that will depend on what your handicap index is and how much above or below that 113 average the slope rating of the course you're playing that day is. Course rating is the figure that trained course assessors expect a scratch golfer to get round a golf course in. And for the purposes of their calculations, they assume scratch golfer is someone who can hit it 250 off the tee with a driver and 230 with a fairway wood in normal playing conditions. For a lady, I think those figures are 210 and 170. So the course rating will sometimes be more than the par of the course, sometimes less than the par of the course, and that will depend on factors such as topography, fairway width, difficulty of holes, amount of out of bounds, factors that make one course harder than another, and course assessors take all of that into account. I suppose for those of us in the UK and Ireland, it's similar to the way in which standard scratch score often was different to the par of the course one way or the other by a shot or two. The final piece of the jigsaw then to allow us to get to slope rating is the bogey rating, and this is effectively the same as the course rating but for a 20 handicap male golfer or 24 handicap lady golfer. And they assume in the assessments there that a 20 handicap male golfer will hit it 200 with driver, 170 with a fairway wood. Obviously we all know people who vary massively one way or the other from that, but that's the average. Ladies, the figures are 150 and 130. And the idea here is this will assess how difficult the golf course is to get round for golfers in that handicap bracket. From there, we then go on to work out what the slope rating is. So now we come on to the crux of the whole system, the slope rating, and this uses course rating and bogey rating to assess the relative difficulty of a golf course for good players, if you like, and slightly less skilled players. Now these slope ratings vary from 55 for what would be a fairly easy course up to 155 for a very difficult golf course. 113 is the key figure, it's the average against which the difficulty level of a golf course is assessed. We'll come on to that a little bit more in a minute. The idea is that a harder a golf course is, the more strokes a higher handicapper might need to get round on an equal basis with a lower handicapper. The difficulty level kind of goes in a curve like that rather than like that. And if you want an example of what I mean by that, let's think about Augusta National. Tour pros are often asked how would an average 20 handicapper fare around here in the Masters setup, and they'll say they wouldn't come remotely close to breaking 100, 110 even. Whereas that same 20 handicapper could play around a relatively easy golf course in the early 90s. Now, I've looked on the England Golf website and it tells me that my handicap index is going to be 4.3. Now that means around this golf course here at the London Club, we've done the maths, I would get 5.25, 5.3 shots, so I'd play off 5 if I played off the tips round here. If I played elsewhere, or even harder golf course, let's say Carnoustie, Trump International off the back tees, the slope rating is going to be somewhere up in the 140s, maybe even 150. I suspect I would get 6 shots round there. But the difference is a higher handicapper going to a place like that, let's say you're playing off 21 or 22, you might find when you get to Trump International and you decide to take it on off the back tees, wisely or unwisely, you might find you're getting 28 or 29 shots. I haven't done the precise maths, but the higher your handicap, the more shots you are likely to get over and above your handicap index than a lower handicapper. Conversely, of course, if the slope rating is lower, you're going to get fewer shots. Now, good news is you don't have to do all this maths yourself. Clubs should be displaying course handicap information on notice boards, on perhaps big boards by the tee, hopefully on the website, so all the figures are there for you. All you have to do is cross-reference your handicap index against the slope rating of the tees you've chosen to play from that day, and you'll find out how many strokes you're entitled to for that given round. Okay, so that's the basics. Now there's a few other little things that are going to have some bearing on how the whole thing works. One of those is the playing conditions calculation, PCC, and this is going to factor in other conditions on the day out on the golf course, weather, firmness of fairways or whatever, that either make the course particularly easy or particularly hard, and it's going to factor that into the handicap calculations for that day based on anyone out on the course that day playing in a competition or putting in a card for handicap. And it can go down 1, it can go up +3. Those of us in the UK are kind of used to a similar thing with the competition scratch score, which mitigated against the course playing particularly easy or particularly hard on a given day. So that will still be there for those of us in the UK. It may be new to people elsewhere in the world. Finally then, there's a couple of what you might term safeguards in the system which we just need to talk about here. The first of those is the low handicap index, and this is an anchor point, which is the low point of your handicap over a 12-month period, and your handicap cannot rise by more than 5 shots from that. And I guess that's to mitigate possibly against foul play, I suppose, but more a really poor spell of form seeing your handicap go like that, which it would do under the new system more so than under the old system for those of us in the UK and Ireland, where 20 bad rounds would see you go up 2 shots, 0.1 times 20. 20 really poor rounds under the new system could, in theory, see your handicap rise massively. So there's going to be a limit of 5. And there's also a couple of things called soft and hard caps. The soft cap, once your handicap has gone up by more than 3 from that LHI, low handicap index, anything above that between there and 5 only goes up by half what it would do under the normal calculation. So if it would have gone up to 5, it only goes up to 4. If it would have gone up to 6, it only goes up to 4.5. And then there is the hard cap, which is that 5, that absolute limit by which your handicap cannot go up by more than that over the course of a 12-month period. Finally then, we have a safeguard the other way, if you like, via the exceptional score reduction measure that's going to be built into the system. And this is really to ensure that if you have an absolute blinder and you play a long way below your handicap index gets affected by more than it would do under the normal calculation. And the bar has been set at 7. If you have a score differential in a round which is 7 or more, so you play 7 shots better than your handicap index, there will be an extra -1 set against your handicap index, and that will apply to all the 20 current counting score differentials, which means that over time it will gradually drop off, but at that particular moment you'll have an extra one shot taken off your handicap. Finally then, if you shoot 10 under your handicap index, you're going to have a 2-stroke additional reduction applied to your 20 current counting score differentials, and that's just to make sure that your handicap index reflects your current ability, and that you don't therefore go and clean up in competitions because the normal calculation didn't give you a big enough reduction. And if it was just a freak once in a lifetime score, then gradually over the next few rounds it will work its way back out of your handicap index. So there we are. Those are what we think are the key terms you need to know about the World Handicap System. You can go into as much detail as you like elsewhere on the Home Union websites, but the key things you really need to know are handicap index and the slope rating of the course you're playing from the tees you're playing from that day. So what do you think of the World Handicap System, handicap index? Do you know what yours is? Has it surprised you? Do you think the system is going to be better or worse than the old system for us in the UK and Ireland? Let us know your thoughts below, but for now, from a slightly wet and windy London club, it's goodbye.